Good evening and welcome to the MICRC virtual town hall meeting. We're excited to have each and every one of you join us this evening, and we want to let you know a few of our ground rules. It's going to be basically based on the word respect. Make it very simple, very clear. We're going to respect you, and you're going to respect us, and we're going to respect each other. We're very excited to have you here for the virtual town hall meeting. We'll be here to answer your questions. In addition to answering your questions, we will also provide demonstrations on how you can communicate to the commission by letting you see where the maps are located off the website, our public comment portal, and our mapping portal throughout this interactive exercise. Before we begin, we're going to turn it over to our chair, Commissioner Cynthia Orton.
Hi, we are so glad that you're all here. On behalf of the commission, thank you for joining this virtual town hall, and we hope that we can answer questions and hear what you have to say, and that you will take what you learn and spread it, share it with those around you so that we can hear from more of the citizens of Michigan. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Commissioner Orton. The brainchild for this idea to go virtual is none other than our own Commissioner, Rhonda Lang, and she's going to share the purpose. And then after she shares the purpose, she's going to open the floor up for questions. The way you're going to answer your questions is you're going to click the raise hand button. Once again, you're going to click the raise hand button, and then we'll move you over as a panelist so you can ask your question live, and then we'll move you back to an attendee so we can get to the next person. So if you have questions, we invite you to raise your hand now. Raise your hand now, then immediately after Commissioner Lang provides the purpose as why we're here tonight, we will take your questions. Without further ado, Commissioner Lang.
Good evening, everybody. The purpose of tonight's meeting, or town hall, is about you, the public. We are here to hear from you, to let you actually interact with the commission, to ask your questions, to let us know about your community, let us know about what's important to you within your community, and how we, during this redistricting process, can work with you to best represent you and your community. There's also a lot of confusion on how to use our portal and things, so we're going to be opening that up to answer questions. The whole purpose of this, as many of you know, is we are redistricting some areas in the Detroit area. So it's very important that we hear from you, and that was the whole reason for this brainstorm idea. I felt like we weren't hearing from enough of the public, and we cannot stress it enough that the public input is what is going to make this work. So I'm not a great public speaker, so I'm going to stop there, and I just want to get right down to business, if we don't mind. Mr. Woods.
Thank you. Let's see who hands are up. Okay, first, Commissioner Lang, we have Sherry Gay Dagnago. Her hand is up first.
Good evening, Sherry. Can you hear me, Sherry?
Yes, I can hear you guys. I don't know if you can hear me.
I can hear you now. You're free to.
Okay, thank you very much. So first of all, thank you all for having this. I was very concerned with the low attendance at the venues. I know hindsight is 2020, so I appreciate you helping citizens get on that had transportation barriers, parking, and more. So thank you again for having this special meeting, and to all the leaders in the city of Detroit that helped get the people out. I just have to say, realize that it's very difficult when you're not from a particular.
Sherry, Sherry, I apologize. Could you repeat that? You kind of faded out.
Okay, thank you. I said I realize when you're not from a particular area, it's kind of hard to identify some of the areas. I just wanted to get clarity because I know in trial we were talking about the lack of having the button to attest for the VRA compliance. And I think during one of the sessions when you all were discussing the mapping process, it seemed like VRA still wasn't being a primary focus. So I wanted to get clarity on that. But I just wanted to also put on record that we are asking that you bring these freight districts back out of Macomb County. We believe that they should be moved further south and not spread across 8 Mile because it makes it challenging. We know a number of people have made comments about blurring the lines of 8 Mile, but you cannot erase several years of racism by simply putting small portions of Detroit across 8 Mile. It's not going to change. It's not going to give citizens like in Brightmoor, where I used to represent, a voice in those communities because the reps that live in Birmingham or other suburban communities will have to answer to their more affluent constituents. So we believe that these maps should be moved further back into Wayne County, not spread across 3 different counties. And so we're asking you guys to do that. But more than anything, making sure that you do have VRA compliance as a priority.
And Sherry, so you know, the commission today did submit 14 maps that will be reviewed for VRA compliance over the weekend. It's going to take a couple of days. So we will be discussing that next week on how these maps did as far as VRA. And then next week, we will be voting on which ones to bring forth to the public. So those will also get posted on the website, which we're going to be going over how to use the portal and look at the maps. So people will be able to comment on those in live time too.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Next, I see we have Yolanda Greer.
Yes, good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
I have a question about when the redistricting will be finalized and how is it going to affect early voting? I mean, Michigan has early voting this year. So if we're still trying to finalize redistricting maps, how will that impact and affect early voting? And when will this decision be made and be finalized?
I may need a little bit of help on this one, Mr. Woods, with all of the fine details. Right now, Yolanda, we are under court order to redraw, so they have set out very specific timelines for us so that the Secretary of State will be able to have maps in place. Mr. Woods, would you like to speak more to that?
Yes, there will be a public hearing in the city of Detroit on February 15th. And so the commission will be forwarding maps or voting for the maps to forward to the public on February 1st. And then once those maps are forwarded, and we will show you the links to the maps that are being considered. But they will be voting on them February 1st, and then you will be able to put your comments on the maps that the commission is forwarding to consideration to the public. Did I answer your first question?
Well, I guess I'm not clear exactly when the court ordered it, but when did the court give you a date that it must finalize?
Yes, the final map is due
maps?
March 1st.
March 1st.
Yes, ma'am.
So that will be after the early voting.
Well, this is for the general election in November of 2024 for your Michigan House of Representatives. Yeah, well, the primary you're speaking to is the presidential primary. We don't impact that. Did that answer your question, Ms. Greer?
We can move forward. Thank you.
All right.
Next, we have Norman Clement.
Hi, Lynn. Hi, you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Yes, thank you for having me and thank you for presenting this information. As the maps are drawn before, I urge you to remember to keeping communities of interest intact, thinking about East Point. I'm looking at Warren, Roseville, Harper Woods. All those areas are growth of Black population going to Macomb County. Macomb County since 2021 has the highest population growth of Black representatives at 58% at 39. A little more over 40,000 folks have moved since 2021. It's increasingly higher now. And we also got to take a factor consideration of Southfield, Royal Oak Township, Oak Park. Those are Black populations. And also with anything north, south of Wayne County, those are population loss. So you have a balancing issue when you want to keep the numbers balanced when you're making those boundaries. The purpose of the commission of the MRC is to keep communities of interest, even from Detroit, Ferndale. Those are communities of interest. And that's what what people voted for, what people advocated for. I know in the past, the Black population only predominated in Wayne County. That is no longer the case right now, and it must be represented right now, not in the past. So I urge the commission to keep doing the maps and make them forward so you have a balanced map from other municipalities that include Black populations outside of the city of Detroit. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Clement. Nomi Joyrich is next. And if I mispronounce your name, please forgive me.
You didn't mispronounce it. You said it perfectly. Thank you. I represent two faith-based nonpartisan organizations. I represent the Michigan Unitarian Social Justice Network, and I also represent Jews for a Secular Democracy. Those are the two places where I work, and I'm authorized to speak on their behalf. So the last round of mapping, when the district did the maps the first time, our members and congregants submitted many hundreds and hundreds of comments. And I know that the general public, I don't even know how many, you probably have a number of how many public comments were submitted in the last process. So I actually have two questions. My first question is, are those past comments, are you reviewing those comments and taking those comments into account? Because I know that this time around, there just has not been the same level of public comment. So are those being taken into account?
Absolutely. I know I myself have been going through, we do have them in a spreadsheet form. Our new commissioners, we do have 3 new commissioners. I know they've been working really hard to play catch up and going through the old public comments. So yes, we are reviewing the old ones. We received the last cycle, I believe it was around 30,000 public comments, if I'm not mistaken. So while we're still reviewing those, it's always nice to have new also.
Okay.
But yes, please know that we're definitely reviewing all of the comments from before and trying to identify the communities of interest.
Terrific. I'm very happy to hear that. And the other thing, it's not so much a question as that I want to alert you that I'm aware that Promote the Vote is going to be submitting a map for your consideration. I know that they also submitted maps in the last round, and their maps were incredibly fair. They checked off all the boxes. They had partisan fairness. They met the VRA standards. And as soon as you get the Promote the Vote map in your hands to review, I just would urge you to give that extremely serious consideration.
Well, Nomi, I can tell you one thing. Today in our mapping session, Promote the Vote map was brought forward and looked at. And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, it was moved forward. There may have been some minor changes to it, but it was moved forward, if I'm not mistaken, to VRA review. So we have looked at it and we are reviewing it.
Thank you. I really appreciate it. And I want to thank all of the commissioners for all of the work. I know it's usually a thankless job and you guys have a really hard job, and I appreciate you greatly. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Percy Johnson.
Yes, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay. All right, so my concern, Detroit, the borderlines of Detroit, that would be south of 8 Mile, east of Telegraph, north of Detroit River, and west of Dickinson, and maybe even a little further, but the borderlines of Detroit. Detroiters deserve to have a distinct voting representation from a person that's live in that area, know that area. So when decisions are made for Michigan, we have a distinct voice for Detroit to speak for them and to give them the revenue and the resources that they need. At least one, it should be two. So I'm just telling you, I mean, let me ask you, because I don't know. I just thought about it while I was listening to you. Is Detroit still the biggest city in Michigan?
I believe it is.
Okay.
I do.
So, I mean, it just makes sense that Detroit should have distinctly representation in the House and the Senate and officials that can bring the resources for their area. They have a distinct issues that outside of Detroit don't have the concerns that Detroiters have. So they need a voice. Give them a voice. I just feel that's the fair thing that we should do. Everybody was so excited about making the people draw the lines instead of the politicians draw the line. I was behind a lot of that. So please make sure that Detroiters have a distinct voice.
Mr. Johnson, we are definitely working hard, and you're going to have the benefit because we actually have some wonderful people that are from the Detroit area. Commissioner Kellum, who just popped on video in front of me right now, she's from Detroit, and she's going to make sure and direct this commission. Trust me, she's fighting for Detroit, and we're going to make sure that your voices are heard.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Next, we have Toinu Reeves.
Yes,
Again,
hello, can you hear
apologies
me?
if I didn't say it correctly.
You said it correctly. Can you hear me?
I can hear you, yes.
Thank you. Thank you again for hosting this town hall. So I just wanted to make sure if I have a clarification. The gentleman mentioned that this is for the November election. I'm assuming that also includes the August primary. Is that correct?
That is correct, sir.
Okay. So I had a few questions. You started off the discussion by saying you wanted to hear input from the members of the community.
Mhm.
And that leads me to two questions. Number one is like, what specific input are you looking for? Because there's a lot of different things that have to do with a very rich socioeconomic landscape. The economic struggles that we're facing, the gentrification that we're facing, and so many other issues. So are there some specific issues there? And number two, like when you say the community, like who are you actually speaking about? Because with all due respect, I think Madam Naomi spoke earlier, but I don't believe that promote the vote is a voting electorate in the state of Michigan. And so now I'm very concerned that you're having these outside 501c4s that have their own, mission. And I was very uncomfortable when she made the statement, we checked all of the boxes. From a resident of Detroit, that sounds very insulting because how we feel and how we view ourselves, and as the gentleman spoke just earlier, what represents us is not just a set of boxes you check. If you haven't, and this is why, we're very encouraged by your town hall, because if you're not going out and talking to members of the community, that checking boxes is not going to be good enough. Again, Madam Naomi, I don't mean to say anything insulting, I'm just expressing my statement. That it does feel a little bit insulting, and I think that she perhaps didn't mean it that way. But I think there has to be a lot more concern, because a lot of us do feel that the districts that were drawn completely just disregarded our, the background culture that lies here, and everything else. That having been said, I do want to identify one more thing that I think has gone unnoticed, and that I was a candidate for state senate in 2022 with the new maps. And one thing that I think that we have to also understand is when we're talking about having representation for Detroit and having Detroit residents or African American residents have an opportunity to vote for their choice of candidate. You also have to give a fair opportunity for candidates in Detroit to run, because if you start packing in all the suburbs where they have a lot more, they have a higher per capita income, they have a larger wealth, and we all know that candidacies and that elections are begun with friends and family network. They have a stronger network of resources. There's no way for candidates in Detroit to be able to compete. And if you look at the electors right now, almost all of them are outside of the city of Detroit. Those who are a part of the Detroit caucus, almost all of them are outside of the city of Detroit. And echoing what I said before, we're very, very happy and very encouraged. We have Detroit residents on the commission that's going to represent the city of Detroit. But just take a little bit of caution also in saying that we have this resident, therefore she's going to take care of all the residents' views. I think that's also a little bit, perhaps a little bit insensitive to make these type of statements. So I would just take caution in that. So just to kind of recap, again, can you explain who's voting in this process? Whose voices are you looking to be heard? Is it just the residents, or also 501c4s who have political interests? And are we addressing the disparity of income for candidates who want to run for office? And then again, I would just add one more thing, and that's if in the process, how are we going to be sure that the maps that are chosen are going to be what we're looking for? Could it be a case where, again, this promote the vote, map gets chosen and residents in Detroit are not happy with it, but you take it into the August election? How do we prevent something like that from happening? And this is only as an example. I'm not saying that promote the vote is not correct. I'm just trying to say, as an example, how do we avoid that from happening?
Okay. I'm going to try and break down everything you asked, Mr. Reeves, one by one. If I miss anything, please let me know, okay? As far as who we want to hear from, this was one of the reasons for this town hall. We felt like we weren't getting enough input from the people that live in the communities, that, their homes are there, their lives are there. I understand that no two people are going to have the same experience where they live. They can have a community, but have very different life experiences. So that's kind of part of the reason for this town hall, is to get an understanding of what's community to you. What's your community of interest? What's your experiences? What should we as a commission, for people that aren't like myself, that aren't from Detroit, what is it that I need to know to truly understand your needs as a resident of Detroit? So that is what part of this is for. It's not all about the large organizations. And I don't know if you've ever watch the commission meetings or not, but I've kind of been vocal about that because I'm like, what about the everyday citizen that comes? I want to make sure that their voices are heard just as much as the organized groups. So you do have ears that want to listen to you and that are going to listen to you. The disparity.
I have something. I'm sorry. Do you want to run through all the? Because I had something to add to that
Oh,
piece.
please go ahead, Commissioner.
I will say that the information or that we're looking for, and it's not that we're looking for anything specific. It is that I think it would make a difference hearing street names. You know, I grew up on this side of 7 Mile where there's a lively park. This area shares a garden with this specific street or area. It's important to me that that our community regularly visits Butzel, like making the areas of Detroit, which is a very large city, as you and I both know, because we live in the city, making those come alive, because there are people, like you said, yes, I sit on the commission as a Detroiter. However, there are people on the commission that don't visit these areas, that don't know these areas. And so while we hear words like disenfranchise, representation, making things equitable. So it's like, specifically, what does that mean? What are we looking at? What are we imagining when we're talking about an area? Because the commission is tasked with drawing communities of interest. We are not to draw regarding race, which is difficult, right? Because we know that Detroit is a predominantly Black city. So we're using communities and neighborhoods, right, to better gauge, better reconfigure districts that were previously a problem. And so in order to do that, we have to have the residents of those areas, the OGs of Block clubs, whoever it is, the barbershops, the salons, the citizens, because that's what we are. We have to have them come in and draw this area by going onto the portal, looking at the things that we've created. There were some comments about things coming below 8 Mile and looking to see, staying current, watching as much as you can in terms of our meetings. But then if you're not able to, going online and looking at those maps and commenting real time, that's what's missing. That's what I'll say, and not as a wagging, my finger at the city of Detroit or anyone else, but those are the things that we're hungry for, because we don't have the public input. Sure, I could sit on the commission all day, but I am sitting on the commission and I'm not a citizen that is actively a part of this process through viewing and participation. Okay, go ahead, Commissioner Lane.
Oh, no,
I'm sorry.
You're doing a wonderful job, Commissioner Cullum.
I wanted to say one thing. So what you said, Madam Kellum, that makes a lot of sense to me now. That makes it much more clear. I just wanted to say earlier to Madam Lang, to what you said earlier, is that you want to hear from residents, but I guess my concern is that when you have a town hall, that we don't know who's logging into this. Like, I can be from like the upper peninsula logging in, and you have no idea, if I'm giving comments that are based in the region or not. So we didn't have any screening process, I guess, in that. That's what kind of concerned me.
I can understand that, and you make a valid point. Of course, why we're looking for the Detroit area, all of our meetings are open to the entire state, all of the citizens. We can't block people out because they're not from Detroit. But
no, ma'am, that's clearly understood. I
Okay.
guess what I meant to say is that when you're taking feedback, that it should kind of be filtered in that way. Like, this is okay, where are you from? I'm from, Detroit, or I'm from East Side. Okay, we're gonna include that when we map it into your comment. So so you're able to make that distinction is what I meant to say.
Okay, thank you. That's a very good suggestion. Thank you. And then there was another question you had. I think you had 3 of them.
The other one was about the candidates. So people running for office. Are we taking into consideration the wealth disparities between different regions of Wayne, Macomb, and Oakland County? Because, as I mentioned before, is that residents in Detroit will not be on the same footing to compete against residents, who have a much larger per capita wealth.
Commissioner Kellum?
That's not our criteria.
Yeah.
We're responsible for drawing for the citizens and drawing for the people. I know that might sound a little abstract or disconnected, but we're not to draw based upon like incumbents or folks running. That's not what we're tasked with doing.
I'm not talking about the incumbency. I'm talking about the income levels. So I'm asking, so what I'm saying is that if you include the issue is not just a social issue, it's a social economic issue. So it's not just about Detroit versus, I mean, it's Detroit versus suburbs in some way of looking at it. But if you have low income mixed with high income, then that gives an unfair advantage to the high income region of the district.
I understand what you're saying. So no in part, yes in part, right? I brought up the conversation about ethnicity. There are things that are going to be covered when you're being more conscious of the communities and the areas that we're drawing for, right? And that is why we are very closely looking. If you go back to watch the tapes again, I really implore you and everyone else that's listening or who's listening to look at the maps that we've drawn, and I think you'll be pleasantly surprised. So no, it's not. We don't have a a section that says, okay, now we're considering social economic status. I understand wholeheartedly how that's important, especially for people of color and for other groups and communities. However, that's not something that's a part of our criterion. It doesn't mean that us reconfiguring and drawing better, that there are not implications and impacts for that.
I understand.
Yeah.
And the last question was about the process. So after the maps have been put forth, who votes on them?
So we had someone ask us that when we were at Huntington Place, and it's two answers, right? We're only, just like what this town hall is, we're the last 13 standing of who has the vote of what the maps look like, but it is totally based on public comment, folks that come to the meetings, folks that write in, the things that we hear, just like you're sharing now. That's what carries the vote. When we're debating, you all are who we're using to debate. No, I heard Diego from Southwest, and he described Chatsey Condon community. He described the Junction area. Like, these are things that we're using to battle, like, why a map is going to work, why a map is not going to work. Oh, this community should not be sweeping down this way because this will affect, like, one of the things that you'll hear us talk about a lot is East Village, Cornerstone Village, Morningside. So those communities, when we were first listening, they came out a lot and described everything that happens in their neighborhood. So that always vetoes, what we can come up with in terms of a vote, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes sense now. I appreciate it. And I apologize to the other members who are waiting in the line. And I thank all of you for being patient to answer my questions thoroughly.
Commissioner Kellum?
Yeah.
I have to step away for one moment, so could you take it for a moment until I come back?
Sure.
Thank you.
Next, we have Olga Johnson.
Hello.
Hi, Olga. How are you?
I'm well.
Okay. Go ahead.
I'm concerned about the allocation of resources. Quite often, our representatives and government fund things based upon demographics within the region.
Mm-hmm.
And I really don't want to use some of the services, lose the services that we have in our community, such as our libraries, our recreation centers. Those are actually life-sustaining services for many of the citizens within the area that may sometimes fall on difficult economic times. Some people, there's a boom coming, and others, there's a lot of economic uncertainty. So how will this affect the allocation of resources? Will we have to go a further distance to receive some of the perhaps senior services that may be available?
What area are you from? If you don't mind sharing, if you don't have to.
I'm over in the Van Dyke 7 Mile area, and we had a recreation center called Lipke that discussing now is no longer available. Many of the people have attended a recreation center called Farwell, and it's really important to us because many of the people have had health problems such as heart attacks and things like that. And they offer programs that are life sustaining there, as well as many block clubs needed, the Wilder Library, which, you know, is not crowded all the time, but when we have these important community issues, we have a place that many of the community members who don't have cars can walk to and resolve some issues that occur within our community. And if we are pushed out and the transportation may be an issue to voice our opinions in other communities.
So we're
So
not
I'm
in the, go ahead, Olga, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm wondering how, and then, you know, quite often the government supplies funding based upon the demographics. So they may be given a lump sum for infrastructure repair or, you know, even senior care or other services that the government provides to us. Thankfully, to the government, you know, we may have a pothole at 7 Mile and Van Dyke, and how will they allocate those resources so that, you know, we can have in an even-handed manner?
So the commission is responsible for redrawing in this phase the lines that were previously created for our maps, right? We are not a government body or a council body that is responsible for allocations of funds or any sort of budgeting. However, I will say that we're not in the business of pushing anybody out with these lines. That is not our hope or our desire. Our task and what we endeavor to do is to listen to citizens like you and the gentleman that spoke before, and to create communities that are familiar and used to working with one another. And if we have to mix citizens, to use that phrase, if we're having to pull from other communities or neighborhoods, it will be neighborhoods and communities that have a shared interest. So if there is a new street or a new precinct that is in with yours, it will be because that community is right around the corner and likely uses the same resource that you're using. Does that make sense?
Well, you know, I'm hoping that it works out because,
Mhm.
like I said, we lost one recreation center, and many that was in walking distance for many, and many people are complaining because
Mhm.
they can no longer walk and take advantage of those services. When I go over to the other recreation center, I see people who have had serious health issues, be it diabetes, heart attacks, etc., that are able to mitigate those symptoms and live longer by utilizing the facilities provided by the government. And if they push those services out where people can no longer access them, it's going to be a big detriment to the community.
Yeah, I
We
would
don't like
agree.
that.
I hope that you get representation through this process. You know, you're able to get representation that represents that interest, because that's where that lies. Again, we're not looking to do anything that would disrupt communities. There's enough of that, particularly in the city of Detroit and other cities across the United States that are like it. So we're hoping to, and I think, you know, I can say with confidence, we are pulling together maps. You should definitely go on our portal, the MICRC website, and we have draft maps that we've been diligently working on, and that will give you an identity of where, or give you an idea, excuse me, where your community sits, and what changes possibly that you could expect. But that would depend on your representative working hard and making sure that he or she, whoever, is doing the same work that we're doing by listening to the people.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
We have Yvette Anderson next. If it's not Yvette, tell me that it's Yvette.
It's Yvette. Thank you, Brittany. It
You're
is
welcome.
Yvette. Thank
Okay.
you very much. My dad was very adamant about it being Yvette, so thank you for
I
that.
understand. I am a Brittany, not a Brittany, so I understand.
Okay, so the question that I have, one of my questions was cleared up because Mr. Woods mentioned that it would be the general election in November, but we know that the House of Representatives, more often than not for the city of Detroit, are elected in the August primary and don't have much in the way of competition going into November. So the maps that are going to be put forth, there's a February deadline that I heard that was mentioned. What subsequent to that is the public going to have an opportunity to question, kick the tires on the maps that are presented?
Okay,
And how many versions of maps? I heard something about promote the vote maps, but then there's also the AFL-CIO maps. Were those moved forward?
So to my knowledge, and you can watch our video from today, we cycled through several numbers and recited them, but there are 14 maps that will be sent to the VRA for analysis. And after which point, next week, we will have a spirited debate about those maps. From now until next week, we invite the public, myself specifically, but I'm sure any commissioner here, Commissioner Lang, and all commissioners that are present and listening, will encourage you all to start engaging with the maps now, and you can leave comments because that is all we have. That is like our direct line, Beat Me 911 communication to the Detroit citizens and residents, right? So that'll be your time to weigh in heavily. And I will say anecdotally, when I mean comment, or when I say comment, I'm not saying I don't like this. This rips up the area. What specifically don't you like? This tears apart this Block Club community. It tears apart a relationship or revitalization that's happening here. This does not allow this neighborhood. This is what we're talking about. Things that either reject or protect your individual community. So that's the kind of engagement. And then Commissioner Lang has something for you too, Yvette.
Oh, I was just going to say, and Mr. Woods is also going to do a demonstration on how to enter comments into our portal and also enter comments on maps in our portal. So there will be a demonstration on that tonight too. So that's another way to interact.
Okay.
And Ms. Anderson, the question you asked about looking at the maps, the commission will be having a public hearing on the 15th of February in Detroit. We will have the maps up that we're proposing to move forward on Friday, February 2nd, and you can put comments directly on those maps that the commission is considering for a vote that's due to the court by March 1st.
So am I understanding that if the commission needs to come forth and agree on maps at the end of the day, and then the court, where will does the special master come into play? How would it happen that if the commission comes through and they agree on the maps, is that it? And they meet the VRA standards, etc.
My understanding of the process is the commission will submit the maps to the courts, and then it's up to the courts to decide if the commission has met the criteria that we need to. At that point, I believe we're at the mercy of the courts. They're going to make sure that we comply with the VRA, that the maps are done correctly. If there's a possibility that if they found it wasn't, then that's where the special master may come in. But the commission is working hard, and we're going to get it done right. We're positive we're going to get it done right. So, but there is that possibility. There's always that possibility. But we're working hard to make sure that things are done right, and we're kind of at the hands of the court, though. I don't know if that really answered it, but it kind of answers it.
It gives me some insight. It does give me a little insight. And earlier, when I came on, Sherry Gay Danyogo was giving some public comment about how previous maps had been drawn and the socioeconomic and the impact that other citizens of Michigan would have on diluting the district and the voting power of African Americans. So I do want to say I was in agreement with the comments I heard that Sherry was making as well. That's all. Thank you for hosting this and encouraging, and we look forward to getting more instruction, because the process really can be somewhat intimidating to average citizens. I did have an opportunity previously to go and speak during public comment, but understanding the process and the mapping and all of that. It took some getting up to speed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would agree.
For us as well.
All right. Thank you. Thank you for your time and for hosting this town hall.
Thank you for attending.
Edwina King.
Yes, and good evening, commissioners. First, I'd like to say I'm speaking as, of course, I'm a member of several organizations who are committed to social action, but I'm speaking as a Detroiter and as someone whose family has resided in Detroit for more than 100 years. And before I begin my remarks, I first again like to say thank you to not only the commissioners for hosting this very important town hall, but also specifically to you, Commissioner Kellum, who, and I watched the meetings from the beginning, you have consistently uplifted the voice of Detroiters throughout this entire process. And so if no one on this call tells you thank you, I would like to say thank you to you. In addition to former Rep. Gay Dagnogo, to Natalie Bienemy and the other litigants, thank you for using your power and stepping out to make sure that Detroiters are not disenfranchised nor disempowered throughout this entire process. And so again, thank you for your advocacy on that end as well. One of the things that I view this as a civil rights issue. And not only is it a civil rights issue, but it's the most important civil rights issue in modern time, because the effects of these maps could impact communities for generations to come. And we're already seeing, as a Detroiter, we are already seeing and feeling the effects of how some of these maps have impacted what representation looks like. And we see situations where representation is not necessarily for us or by us, and having to navigate that in a time where politics is very, very fragile, the political state of our country and our state. I think it's very important that we uplift the importance of what we're talking about today. And so my question is specific to outreach. And so those that are involved in this process, those that tend to be politically engaged, we know how to find information. We know where to go, how to get it, what to do with it. But there are a lot of individuals, even with this meeting, and again, I appreciate it, but, there's a digital divide in Detroit. How are we accessing how would someone who is a member of that digital divide access this information? When we start talking about communities of interest, I am Black or identify as African American, but that's not the only demographic in Detroit. There are communities that English is a second language to them, but this is important enough for them because it could impact how what representation looks like for them. And so if you could share what the community engagement strategy is to make sure that this information is not only articulated, especially given time constraints, to those that are in Detroit and impacted communities with the maps, but more so making sure that those who don't have the ability to access this information digitally or to provide comments via the internet or however it needs to be provided, how are they able to participate in this project? I mean, in this process? And again, thank you for your time.
Edwina, I think that that's an excellent statement because I've been considering that deeply. I have personally spoken with our executive director in community outreach, extraordinary person, Edward Woods III, about how to get to each district, because I do recognize that this conversation, though it doesn't for some and other communities scream cultural relevancy, that is the space in which I frequent and am rooted in when it comes to observing and respecting people's identities. So saying all that, basically, it means that you have to go to people and thinking of communities, whether it's Bengali community, Arab community, Chaldean community, whether we're talking about Black folks, whether we're talking about folks that have other interests that have nothing to do with their race or ethnicity, you have to go to people and create the conversation, because there is a lot of catch up in this process. People had to first recognize that we're on the ballot. Then they had to realize that it's not about to happen. The commission has happened now. And then they had to track all the meetings. Then you had to, if you had the ability, watch all the meetings. So I would like to visit each district. I just came up with this plan. So I'll be reaching out to district managers to talk about the process, to talk about the maps, to show the maps and explain the areas so that they're to level the playing field, because it's going to take participation, especially from communities that are used to not being asked. They're used to decisions being made for them. They're used to not having a voice and people not caring. So I want to at least make that best effort. I cannot promise that people are going to come to these spaces, but I'm going to work with the district managers to make sure that these are places that people can walk to, ride to, get rides to, drive to, and making sure that it's nestled in the community and not necessarily a hotel and a ballroom, like literally going where people are to have this conversation. So I can't speak to Mr. Wood's strategy because communication is his lingo and expert, but that's an effort that I am making to make sure that people at least understand as these maps are getting pumped out and before we're making any sort of final decision without them.
And I think one of the other things too to remember is we do take written comments too from people. So you don't have to submit your comments to us online. Comments can even be mailed to us. So that's another option if somebody wanted to reach out to us but didn't have the digital access, they could send comments that way too.
Thank you. Thank you. And in closing, I would just also really like to uplift that when you start going out into the community, again, think of those communities where English is a second language, and maybe making sure that this information is accessible to them so that way they're able to understand it. Thank you.
King, if you have any ideas or suggestions with regards to communications and how we can improve, we welcome any and everyone's suggestions. You can place them in the chat, whether it's on the YouTube or the Zoom. We definitely welcome any and all suggestions with regards to that. We are looking at a facility, and if people have suggestions, that can hold 200 to 300 people on February 15th for our public hearing. That is accessible, that could be, to the community. The last time we did it at it was in the TCF Center, the old Coble Hall. We had one of our best attendants. This past week, we paid for parking, and people took advantage of that and raised, but obviously we would like to have seen more numbers. But we know that people also communicate through our public comment portal, our mapping portal, with regards to that, but definitely looking for some suggestions for some other opportunities. We will be doing a 10-day kickoff starting Monday, February 5th, in terms of promoting the location and where we're going to be for that public hearing on the 15th. So if anyone has suggestions, you can please email them to us, share them with us, and we would appreciate it. As you know, we do have a sign language interpreter that is interpreting, and we want to provide a break at this time. And so if you give us a few moments, we will be on break and we will come back to you, let's say in about 10 minutes. So 8:15, let's say 8:15, we'll rejoin you after 8:15. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. Let's get our sign language interpreter back in the room.
Good evening, Mr. Woods.
Oh, I said afternoon. Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm so sorry.
No.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we're just waiting for our sign language interpreter to come back on, and we'll be right back with you. So hold on just a second. We're having some technical difficulties. Thank you so much for your patience, ladies and gentlemen. Our ASL interpreter is here, and we can go ahead and continue. Commissioner Lang.
Welcome back, everybody. We're going to bring forward our next participant who has a question. Our next participant is Steve Walker.
Thanks for calling on me. I live in Southwest Detroit, and I have a couple comments to make. According to the Michigan Constitution, the first responsibility of this commission is to follow the spirit of the VRA, the Voting Rights Act. 2 years ago, you refused to do that. I'm well aware that Brittany Kellum led a big effort for the commission to follow the VRA, and the majority voted her down. So I take Commissioner Lang's statement as sincere that hopefully this year the commission will follow the VRA and do what's right. And I don't see anything in the court decision that changes that responsibility as your number one priority. Now I want to address how you accomplish that. I agree with Mr. Clements that many Black people have moved over beyond 8 Mile Road. So I don't think this commission should consider 8 Mile as some kind of a barrier in drawing district lines. I listened to several speakers earlier in the week, and I think the way they view this, they agree with me, but they view this as you draw a district in Oakland or Macomb County and then bring it down into Detroit to get Black voters. Again, this is where you made your mistake 2 years ago. What this does is ensure Democratic victories because the Blacks vote Democratic, but it doesn't meet the requirements of the VRA. I think you meet the requirements of the VRA by drawing districts in Detroit and then going past 8 Mile to get enough people to meet the minimum requirements for a district. When you do it that way, you'll end up with more Black districts. But a bunch of I haven't looked at all 14 plans, but a bunch of your plans reduce the number of Black districts. They don't expand them. Clearly, the VRA requires more Black districts. The people who sued, Sherry Gay Dagnogo and her other complainants, were trying to create more Black districts. Their sad sack attorneys didn't handle it right, and the court didn't do very well, and so that isn't explicitly in the court opinion. That's clearly what we want here, and that's what needs to be done. In the same vein, I think the commission should not be reluctant to change the boundaries of districts that are not in the court decision, because by changing some of those boundaries that we might get more Black districts. So again, I hope the commission is going to act right this time. They voted not to do it 2 years ago, but hopefully this time they will do it and will achieve the objective of meeting the VRA, which is your first responsibility.
Thank you so much, Mr. Walker.
Next, we have Simone Wilkes.
Hello, hi. Thank you so much for giving me this opportunity. I have sat here and listened to everyone that came before me, and all I can hear from you guys' response is that you guys are going to move forward with this, even if we show up or not. You guys already have you guys' mind made up. And then how you guys going to start on a map where y'all haven't even let the community know where the money has been allocated for. Back in 2003, y'all told us to wait till 2004. Now we're now into 26 days into 2004, and we still don't know where the money is. We still have people homeless that's living in the city of Detroit. You guys are not answering you guys' mailboxes or responding back to complaints. I know several families that are displaced from homes because you guys told me when I called that y'all can't fit our problems on y'all agenda. And not only that, you guys had us on hold for over a long period of time. I have sit here and listened to Brittany not only tell these people, we know about, we know that you guys supposed to have an input, but we're still going to push it whether you guys come or not. I keep hearing the other guy mentioning something about the 15th, but aren't you guys holding another meeting tomorrow?
Hi, Simone. This is the Brittany that you referred to.
Yeah.
I have some clarifying questions for you, and then maybe I'm wrong, but definitely correct me. So we're a redistricting commission. We're not city council. We're not responsible, and we're average citizens, not politicians. Commissioner Lang can tell you a little bit about herself. I'm born and raised in the city of Detroit. The 13 of us were picked randomly and selected to redraw the
Well, why
line.
you guys are focusing on the map, but y'all are still not focusing on the other things that we have reached out to you guys about, other concerns. And
So
then why y'all trying to redistrict a map when y'all should be trying to fix our cities, fix our homes? Why, when we go out of the city, it's more houses that's next to each other, and y'all just trying to create lots in the city of Detroit? That's just unfair.
I understand what you're saying, but we're not in charge of that. Like, we were picked to redraw and redistrict the lines for the state of Michigan. It was on a ballot, it was voted for, and then they randomly selected us. We're not in charge of housing or any other area. That's more of a city council complaint.
And how is this even, like, how is y'all even redistricting the map when y'all haven't even let the people get a hands-on or a say-so about it? Y'all posting these events the day before or hour before. Luckily, I am in several different organizations that follow up with different things, so I was able to get on this meeting. But what if I didn't? What if I wasn't a person that was involved in different organizations that want the best for our community? How would I have known about this? And then I keep hearing y'all say, well, it's on the website, go to his website, go check this, go check that. Well, I did that when we was on the break, and I don't see nothing about the 15th.
So when I referenced the website, and Commissioner Lang, I'm sure you have something to add. I was talking about for the maps that we're drawing. As a commission, we've been a body for about 2 years. This is going on our third year. And so hold on, Simone, hold on 1 second, please. We've had public hearings. We've traveled all over the state of Michigan, including, I think, about 3 times in Detroit, held town halls. This isn't our first time engaging with the public. And I am by no means saying that it's perfect. I know that we had Miss Edwina King come, and there have been several other people before talk about.
I don't mean to cut you off, but how do people supposed to know where to come if you guys don't post it into an hour or a day before y'all have town hall meeting?
Go ahead, Commissioner Lang.
Miss Simone,
Yeah.
the town hall, I will admit, the town hall meeting was my idea, and it was kind of a last spur of the moment because we were looking for public input about the redistricting process, and we felt like the community in Detroit, we weren't hearing enough voices from Detroit.
How is y'all able to make out Detroit when y'all don't live in Detroit?
I do live in Detroit my whole
I know
life.
you live in Detroit, but do your colleagues and the other 13 people that's on here, that's on the district and live in Detroit? And then she just said that this was her idea and it was last minute. So how can you expect to have a great turnout if y'all doing stuff last minute?
Simone, I'm so sorry you're frustrated with us. Honestly, I am.
I'm not frustrated with you guys. I'm frustrated that you guys are not standing up for us and not letting us be a voice too. Not letting us have a part of it. And then y'all claim that, oh, well, we're gonna send it to the courts whether you guys show up or not. That's all I've been hearing tonight. You haven't told us.
That's not what I said.
You never told us who have the final say so in it. When the guy asked you, does the public have a final say so in it? you said, well, it's going to be signed and sent over to the court. So you
No, that's not what, Simone,
So
what we said was we base our final decisions. We're placed as a commission. Hold on one second. We're placed on the commission to have the final vote that comes from public comment. We can't.
What public comment? That's what I'm saying. You're
The
not
comment
signing.
that you're getting right now, the comment that you're giving right now, the comments that happen in our meetings, the comments that are on our website.
Your comment to my comment. So what comments are y'all getting this from if y'all not letting us come to these town hall meetings because y'all want to do them last minute? That's what Lean just said. This was her idea and it was last minute.
This town hall meeting was last minute. It was decided on Tuesday, a way to get more public input. So as far as this, but all of our meetings are scheduled in advance.
Like I said a day ago, right? Today is now Thursday, right?
Come on, give us 3 suggestions. Give us 3 suggestions. We're not trying to argue.
Y'all should do it a month in advance and let the public know.
Slow down. The first thing is you suggest that there should be, if there's going to be any meeting outside of a regular meeting, because our regular meetings are posted for the public. I don't know what
they posted on. What website? Where can we find them?
I was going to just ask, you're talking a little fast right now. I was just going to ask for them to drop a link in the chat so that you can see that all of our meetings, I can try and do it myself or share my screen.
I just think that it's best that you guys let the public be a voice instead of you guys deciding things on your own. That's all I'm saying.
Right. That's what we're trying to do. That's what we're trying to do. So let's see here.
Thank you so much, Simone. We appreciate your comments.
Thank you so much for having me. You guys have a great night.
I was going to share my screen.
I believe our next commenter is Frank Woods.
Good evening. How are you all this evening?
Good evening.
Great.
Well, thank y'all for allowing me to speak. I'm a resident of the city of Detroit, lifelong. Lived on both sides of the city, east and west. I'm going to say this, that we really have to be mindful, as the young lady was just speaking, that the citizens do have a voice in what's going on. I know that you have had meetings posted, but even those didn't get out until, in my view, to the last minute. And there were 2 organizations that have an impact on the community, but not much in the community where people can say, okay, I want to attend this. All politics are local. So when you consider drawing these maps, you definitely have to go with what the young man said earlier about the BRA, because that should have been the basis from the basis of from the black vote, you want to call it, and then work your way out to grasp anything outside of the city of Detroit. Because in my state house district runs from Birmingham down to southwest Detroit. And the young lady that represents me is from Berkeley. She has no idea about what it takes and what we need in the city of Detroit. So it's not representational of us in the city for us to have a voice in that. Just the average person is not going to say, oh, well, I'm going to go to Berkeley and talk to this state rep. Because the state rep, when I spoke with her, she has no knowledge really too much of the city of Detroit. It was basically an opportunity to run for office to represent her community. And that's what we need to look at. When we talk about community of interest, her interest is in her community, not in Detroit. But it was just the fact that she had to represent Detroit. So she had to have, but she doesn't really have an input or knowledge about Detroit. So we got to be real mindful when we draw these maps to include Detroit as the base and then work your way out. And if you don't work your way out across 8 miles, so be it. and those that are in East Point and Warren, any other cities that have grown based on the Black population, those areas were drawn from a basis and then worked their way out. And if people moved into those areas, then they know what challenges they were going to have in that city, those municipalities. So we definitely have to make sure that when we go forward with these commission and these maps, that we do get input from the average person who may want to participate. And I believe they do, because I can guarantee you they don't want to have to go to Southfield and they live in Detroit to get a representative to represent them in Detroit, and that person has no knowledge of what they're going through. So we definitely have to have people from the areas from which they're elected from to represent us. So that's what I have to say, and I will be keeping a close track on what's going on. If I have any more input on the maps, I'm definitely going to be looking at them and figure out how we can draw them better. And because each area has minorities in it, has majority in it, whichever you might want to call yourself. So we definitely have to continue down that road to make sure these maps have a strong representation about a VRA. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Woods.
Thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to have to take a brief commercial break. We'll be right back with you. Thank you so much.
Your call has been forwarded to an automatic voice message system. Yeah.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. We're ready to go ahead and get started. We needed to have a break and a switch, and we want to thank Rebecca Stuckless for coming on and joining us to provide sign language interpretation. Commissioner Lane, Commissioner Kellum, we'll turn it back over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Woods. Rhonda Sanders is our next speaker. Oh, pardon me, Rhonda Sanders Adams.
Okay, hi everyone. Well, I have had a real serious journey with you all. I appreciate your efforts, but I'd like to get you to know a little bit more in reference to, and I love how you phrased it, Commissioner Kellum. This is the spirit of Detroit, and a little bit about the community organizations that could be helpful and have that exposure and that community engagement features available to you. But we all have to start off with this, and leads to the spirit. Coming from Psalms 40, verse 8, to do your will, oh my God, is my delight, and your law is deep within me. Then we take the second commandment to love our neighbor as we love ourselves. So when we look at the community and the interests, we're not only looking at the physical features or the population, the demographics, we're looking also at the necessary environmental features too. There is a lot of industrial, there is a lot of agriculture. And some of those things are positive returns on the environment. I know the voting aspect is necessary, but those things do require not only social determinants, but environmental determinants. And so the fairness has the community interest in that aspect. And I truly think that you all have, shown that you have had challenges to these things, but there is, you brought out many times, there is a spirit to Detroit. So what I have done for this type of thing here, we are offering the Pistons are offering a space for all the community development organizations to bring the community to the forum and facilitate that if you commissioners are interested in having a panel which is more or less invasive if you're not, normally active or engaging with this community of interest. You can have a less invasive space to answer questions and, provide that format. So I do have the contact information for you, Commissioner Kellum. And I can forward that information to you. I don't know how you would want me to get that information to you.
Do you mind sending it to Edward Woods III, our communication and outreach and executive director? Edward, do you mind popping in and giving your email, even though I guess I could give your email address, but I want you to give it yourself. Redistricting@michigan.gov. Ms. Sanders Adams.
Okay, very well. I'll get this forward over to them and you all can take it from there.
Thank you. That was a lovely suggestion.
Thank you for reaching out to us. Next, we have Teresa DeBose. Teresa, did you hear me? I was just told my microphone's a little low. Mr. Woods, Teresa may have stepped away or is having technical difficulties. Can we bring in someone else and give her a moment? It looks like next we have Emma Thomas.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi. I would like to excuse my tardiness. I came late to the meeting, and so I'm going to possibly ask a couple of questions that probably was asked earlier, asked and answered earlier. So please excuse me if I'm asking any repeat questions. So first, I did apply to become one of the committee members. Can anybody or does anybody know what the requirements were to be selected? That's my first question.
Well, I know some of the requirements to apply, there were certain qualifications you had to meet, such as you could not have held office, I want to say, within 5 years. You could not be a family member of anybody that held office. You had to have a background that wouldn't prevent you from holding office, even though you can't hold office. You had to identify as a Republican, Democrat, or Independent. And I think those were the basics of it, from my recollection. It's been a little while.
Okay. Who made the selection for the committee?
All of the applicants that applied were randomly put into a pool, and then they hired a third party organization to do the draw. So then each application pool was separated based off from Democrat, Independent, or Republican. There was a random drawing, and if I'm not mistaken, Miss Reinhardt, are you still on here?
It was by the Secretary of State.
Yes, by the Secretary of State. But I thought if she was right available, she could whip it out better than me. Or if you want to step in, Miss Kellerman, kind of tell about the process.
No, I mean, I think you're doing
okay. So
fine.
They had certain criteria too in the random draw, if I understood it right, that made sure we got a representative of the state. Whereas I'm from Northern Michigan, you'll note that we have, if I'm not mistaken, 7 commissioners. They're kind of Southeast Michigan. We have our chair, Commissioner Orton, who is from kind of West Michigan, Battle Creek area. And thank you so much for popping this up. If this helps, and if you can see, this is the Constitution that explains the criterias and what needs to be made. You have to be registered and eligible to vote in the state of Michigan, not currently be or in the past 6 years been any of the following: declared candidate for partisan federal, state, or local office, an elected official to partisan federal, state, or local office, an officer or member of the governing body of a national, state, or local political party, a paid consultant or employee of a federal, state, or local elected official or political candidate of a federal, state, or local political candidate's campaign, or of a political action committee I apologize, ASL, if I might be reading fast, so I'll slow it down. An employee of the legislator, any person who is registered as a lobbyist agent with the Michigan Bureau of Elections or any employee of such person. An unclassified state employee who is exempt from classification in state civil service pursuant to education and persons in the armed forces of the state. Oh, pursuant to Article 6, Section 5, except for employees of courts of record, employees of the state institutions of higher education, and persons in the armed forces of the state. As I stated earlier, you cannot be related to, so no parent, step-parent, child, stepchild, or spouse of any individual who is disqualified.
So 200 were randomly selected, then it went to 180, and then out of the 180, the 13 of us were randomly selected.
Right. Okay, so I understand that process. I do meet those qualifications. I understand, like you said, that it was all about the third party selection. So how many are out of the committee, the 13 committee members are from Detroit, or how are they, like the area of the different committee members? How many represent Detroit?
So I'm born and raised Brittany Kellum. Hi, from the
Are there
city of
any
Detroit.
others?
Yes, and then you have Juanita Curry. She's from the city of Detroit. And then there is Anthony Eade, originally from Dearborn, and who now lives in Midtown.
Okay. Well,
Also West
now,
Bloomfield. Sorry, I want to, if I'm going to tell us business, I might as well get it right. So yeah.
okay. Now, I live in District 4. Can you tell me what the redistricting means for District 4?
Describe District 4. Give us some details.
That is the Morningside area that you were referring to earlier, Cornerstone area, East English Village area, East Warren.
So what I can tell you, because our maps aren't finalized, right? As you know, we're in an active process. So what I can tell you is what we've heard from those communities is Morningside, East English Village, and Cornerstone want to stay together. We've heard about the hard work that you and I'm sure other neighbors and friends and whoever have done in the area to make it be what it is, to make the area mean something and make it have an impact. I'm also, I frequent that area on my drives to the grocery store or whatever. Sometimes I just take random drives around the city. So I know that there have been lots of internal efforts to keep that space sacred. So I think, and I can speak for Commissioner Lang and all of the commissioners, that is an area that we are clear needs to be respected. It's not just a community of interest, but a place that means something, because we've heard so much from the citizens. And if you want to tell myself and Commissioner Lang anything else about that area, please do.
Well, I've been in this area for pretty much born and raised. And of course, security is our biggest concern. Being secure, being safe. My concern was the redistricting. Is it going to, was it, or is it intended to break up the current districts, make them smaller or make them larger? That was another concern of mine. I wasn't quite sure if that was answered.
No, I mean,
the districts are required, I apologize. The districts are required by law to be a certain size with a certain, by size, I mean with a certain number of population in it. So in that aspect, we're not looking to shrink the number of population, I guess we would say.
Give her an example, Commissioner Lang, like we're drawing house maps, so tell her the population so she has an idea of how large that is.
I'm sorry.
I said give an example, like tell her what our population metrics are so she has an idea of like how large we're talking about when we're talking about a district for the House.
So we have a certain amount that we can go under or over, but it's 91,000, and I always forget the last three.
12. We're gonna, don't quote us.
Don't
Okay.
quote.
Something
It's
around.
in the 91,000 range. So as far as population deviation, we can usually get within 89 to 91,000. So we are looking at a few thousand people that are allowed by law. But one of our very first criteria with the VRA, these are federal guidelines, we have to be within a certain percent of population.
Okay. And with the redistricting, I know someone mentioned earlier, and it was probably an error, allocated funds. Does that mean the funds will be stretched out more because they have a larger group or a larger number of people that they have to service in that district?
So what I'll say about that is ultimately, when we're talking about redistricting or any sort of thing that could change the political landscape, like just broadly, I think you bring up issues of, especially when we're talking about Detroit, food insecurity, those that live without homes, folks that are surviving violent crimes, because that's something that I do outside of the commission, schools, all of these things, right? So those begin to be issues that, or challenges, topics, whatever, that after the commissioners are done with this singular and kind of vacuumed process, then it would be up to whoever represents these districts to work hard and get to know the citizens just like we are. We don't have any sort of data, any sort of legal premise or authority to draw things based upon those types of metrics. Now, does that mean by law, though, we're not drawing for those reasons that as human beings, we shouldn't consider how those things impact communities such as Detroit? Of course not. Like, those are things that should be in the back of our minds. For me, it's in the forefront of our minds, but that's not what we're tasked to do, if that makes sense. Like, we're in no way a body that is in charge of allocations, or that's not one of our criterion as we are drawing the lines.
Okay, so I know I need to do a little bit more research to actually really understand the entirety of what's going on. But my last question is, with the redistricting, would areas such as Detroit that has outskirts like Grosse Pointe, would the redistricting have those possibly joined at a certain point, like East Side Detroit joined with Grosse Pointe? Is that what it possibly could result in?
It could. Commissioner
Okay.
Lang can speak a little bit more to that. I'm just saying it could because it's not like that's a secret plan of ours. We just don't know. Today, we just finished submitting 14 maps, and they have a variety. It's a smorgasbord of choices. Based, though, I think each map, when you talk about size and size of districts, each map listens to the call for Detroit to be kept together in 14 different ways. Some explore moving beyond districts that we were tasked with drawing. Some take in very particularly public comment and look at communities in a diverse set of ways. It really, the best thing you could do, Ms. Thomas, is to go on our website and start to look at the maps that we've created in the past week or so.
Okay, one more question.
But Commissioner Lang, I don't know if you have something to say. Just jump in. You can talk over me. It's fine.
Oh, no, you're doing a wonderful job. So if I feel the need.
The
Go ahead, Ms.
website
Thomas.
address, please.
Oh, I'm sorry. I wonder if I'm gonna drop this let me see. Let's figure if I can get the website. Edward might get to it faster than me. I'm gonna put it in the chat. Are you able to see the chat
Because before I wasn't, so let's see.
Let me see.
Okay, I am able to see it now. Okay, I do see it. Thank you.
Okay. So just make sure at the top, you're going to see Congressional, State House, State Senate. make sure you go to the State House and you can toggle or change the top instead of it saying like show 10 entries. You can make it show 50, whatever you fancy. And you can begin looking at our maps. I think it starts at Water Lily, so in entry 321. And if you really want to look at the history, like when we first started drawing, you can go all the way from 321 to
Commissioner Kellum.
yes.
Let me jump in for a second. Emma, we are also, Mr. Woods is going to do a quick overview and show how our portal works. He's going to do a quick demonstration for us. That's also planned. So if you stick around, you'll see exactly where it goes, what to click on. And, you know, that's one of the things we wanted to show the public to make it a little easier to maneuver.
Sounds good. And the next meeting?
The next meeting?
Yes. When is the next meeting? I was told to say Cadillac Place.
Actually, we have a meeting tomorrow.
That's tomorrow?
Yes, we do have a meeting tomorrow. We have a few commissioners that are ill right now. So as of right now, we have a meeting tomorrow. The plan is tomorrow at 9 a.m. In person at Cadillac Place. Is that correct for tomorrow? At Cadillac Place, or you can also register like you're doing tonight with the town hall and view it online.
So will we have another meeting with all of the, I guess, members available?
The meeting tomorrow will be with the majority of the commission. Meeting tomorrow will be with the majority of the commission, but this is why we call this a town hall. Commissioner Lang took it upon herself to meet with the citizens of Detroit and wanted to hear more in depth. I think she said thank you to you.
Yes.
She wanted to hear more from the Detroit citizens. And of course, I am the tag along that also wanted to eavesdrop on what you all had to say. So.
Okay, well, thank you so much.
Thank you.
And giving comment.
Mm-hmm.
Mr. Woods? Whoops.
Do you need to talk to him and do you want me to? Mary Jo.
Ravage.
I was gonna take a second.
Yes, okay. Hello, I will be quick. Yes, I live in Dearborn, but I'm in Detroit, a lot. I love the culture and I go to a lot of meetings and the waterfront and so forth. I attended Marygrove College and then Wayne State for my master's. I worked at the VA Medical Center since it opened until about 6 years ago. And I have two thoughts. I hope that it's not a very big area, but I hope that you'll be able to keep the Marygrove Fitzgerald area together. I know they've worked on many projects together. And I don't know what the population is, but I hope we can keep Wayne State campus, the cultural center, and the medical center together. I'm sure these groups work together on things like grants and legislation and other important endeavors. And hopefully they'll still be able to work together. So that's it. Thank you very much and good luck.
Thank you. Have a great evening.
Thanks.
Right now, it's looking like we still have about 6 people with their hands raised. So maybe we'll be able to do the demonstration after that. I would like everybody to have a chance to speak that wants to speak because that's why we're here.
Yeah, that's the rationale.
Does that work?
Yeah.
Okay. Next, we have Christopher Gilmer Hill.
Hi, good evening. Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Yes, we can.
Great. I'll be brief. I know I've talked with you all a lot. I firstly just wanted to thank you all so much for listening to public comment, taking maps into consideration, and really respecting communities of interest around where I live. I know that's not the easiest thing to do. I know it can get very complicated and there's a lot of different voices, but I'm really happy with the range that we have now in this final selection. So the question I had was sort of relating to the timeline. I know that the deadline for submitting maps for VRA analysis is tomorrow, as Director Woods laid out. Since the court's deadline is a little bit later, will you all still be considering tweaks after that in the next week or so, or are these pretty much like the finalized maps that are going to be?
No, this is just the beginning of the process. The ones that the commission sent forward today, that's for the VRA analysis to make sure that they are compliant. Then we will be meeting next week to have more discussions. They're going to be posted online so people can pin them, make comments. There's still time for more tweaks. And then next week, we have to actually vote on which ones we're going to push forward to the public for the public input. So the public is being given, Commissioner Kellum, do you remember how many days the court gave us a certain amount of time? So those are going to be brought forward for the public to review, give us comment on. We're also having a public hearing at a location to be determined on February 15th, where the public can also give comments on the maps that are moved forward. So by no means, not necessarily are any of these maps 100% finished, because we're looking for the public comment. If there's something the public feels needs to be tweaked, we're probably going to tweak it.
Yeah.
So that's why input is so important.
There's a 30-day public comment period.
Okay. All right. Perfect. Yeah. Thank you so much. Yeah. Thanks for that.
Thank you. Brian White is our next speaker. Brian, are you there?
I'm sorry, I'm just listening. I don't know if you guys are trying to get me to speak. Thanks, though.
Okay.
Okay. Listening is just as good.
Cheryl Thompson Marsh.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening.
One of my questions was just asked by the previous speaker regarding timelines, and I saw a great deal of your proceedings yesterday. It was very lengthy and in-depth. I can't imagine having to actually engage in this process for a long period of time. But two questions. One is, after the 30-day period of comment, what happens after the 30 days, and how will the citizens of Detroit and the rest of the state, how will we be made aware that that comment period is actually starting and when it stops? And I will tell you why I asked that question, because I spent a lot of time after the proceedings yesterday asking people to get engaged in this process, because unfortunately, people that are most impacted are not necessarily the folks that are always at the table. But unfortunately, much of the time we're on the menu. And so I want to ensure as a resident of the city of Detroit that the stakeholders, meaning those that are residents, and I'm speaking of Detroit because that's where I live, that we will be able to effectively engage in that process.
So I want our community outreach director and executive director to weigh in on this, but I know February 5th is when there's going to be a kickoff to begin really, I guess, hammering away at trying to get in touch with residents and citizens of Detroit. I know that this town hall, even though it's happening now, is a part of specifically Commissioner Lang's effort to reach citizens. And we talked about earlier during this meeting that there definitely is a digital divide. I also shared my endeavor to visit each district and get in contact with district managers to meet at spaces that are most comfortable to the citizens, that feel most organic and authentic for their community, to kind of have a facilitating conversation about what this process is and explaining the maps and what it means. Because oftentimes, even if you've been listening now, people are thinking that we're a governing body that we just aren't, or we're city council, or we're in charge of things that we just don't do. So I know that is that rough plan for engagement, but Edward Woods III has shown his face, so I'm sure he has to add.
And I
Thank you.
want to,
Commissioner Kelly, go ahead, Ms. Cheryl.
Mr. Woods, I'm sorry, I didn't know you were going to start. I was just going to thank Commissioner Kellum, because I do know it takes a lot to be in the community, because, you know, there are a lot of foot soldiers out there that are willing to help engage in this process. And so I just need to know the information, so those people that I'm connected to and organizations across Southeastern Michigan, that we can engage in the process with you. Because it's that important. And unfortunately, because of the digital divide, you're right, there are parts of the city that does not have access to internet service because they're not wired for whatever reason. So those are things that some people don't know about, some don't care, but that eliminates access for a lot of people. So, you know, we're just really concerned, we meaning people like me that have been invested in Detroit for a long time, want this to be an inclusive process. So I'm asking so that those of us who are willing to invest some time, we want to help with getting the information out wherever you are, holding it's something in the community, or for those who can engage electronically.
Ms. March, if you can reach out to us at redistricting@michigan.gov, I would like to follow up and talk with you. We're always looking for ways to improve.
Will do.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Commissioner Lang, we have one person left, and then we can go to the demonstration and call it a night. So here's our last person for the evening, Ms. Karen Ferguson.
Karen, are you there?
Oh no, Karen, please be there.
All right. We don't have Karen there. Let's go ahead and go into our demonstration. Is everybody able to see the website?
Yes.
Wonderful. On our front website, as Commissioner Lang and Commissioner Kellum articulated, it was updated to make it easier for citizens to identify the exact work that the commission is doing. If you want to view the maps that the commission are currently working on, you want to hit View Draft Maps. Then you want to hit State House. And then you can see by the date each map that the commission is working on. This is just something to help you if you want to see the actual picture of the map that we're working on. For example, Daisy, you want to hit the download button. And then you will see it will download on your computer. And then if you click on that, it will open up and you can see the actual file of the map that the commission is working on, in terms of what the commission did. So just kind of wanted to share that with you in terms of how that works. with regards to that. You can also comment on the map. So if you see a map that you want to comment on, you just open up the comment link and you can put a comment exactly on the map. You can tell us what you like, what you didn't like, or modifications or changes that you have. This comment link is also known as the mapping portal. So when you hear the commissioners talk about the mapping portal, they're talking about the comment link that is listed on the My Districting Michigan site. Once again, to see the picture, you hit the attachment, and to to provide comment directly related to a particular map, you want to do that. This will be very important starting February 2nd, once the commission releases to the public the maps that it's considering. But right now you can comment on that. So that's one thing that you could do from the commission. Once again, that's from the view draft maps. If you want to know the meeting dates of the commission, you can go to the meeting notices and materials, and you can see all of the meetings that will take place on the commission. You can go back to the inception of the commission. And for January, you can see all our dates. We do have a meeting tomorrow, January 26th, that will start at 9:00 a.m. If you come tomorrow, as long as there's public comments going on, you're able to register for public comments on site. If you want to come remotely, you need to sign up 1 hour before the meeting. And if you click on meeting notice, that's the key thing, it will tell you how to sign up. We have a Microsoft form, office form that you just click here, and you're able to sign up at any and every meeting of the commission. We always have time for public comment and want to hear from you. So for those who may have accessibility issues, transportation issues, from the inception of the commission, we've always had an opportunity for people to provide public comment. And that's how you do it. So you want to go to the meeting notices. Just so you are aware and we're clear, we have meetings every day next week, starting at 9:00 and ending at 6:00 p.m. Once again, we have meetings every day next week, except for Friday, starting at 9:00, ending at 6:00. So if you want to be a part of the public comments, it's at the beginning of the meeting. So you want to sign up, because next week we are all virtual. So you want to make sure you sign up by 8:00. Once again, the maps that the commission is looking to reconfigure are Michigan House of Representatives districts number 1, 7, 8, 10, 11, 12, and 14. Let me slow it down. I'm so sorry, Bethany. Michigan House of Representative districts number 1, 7, 8, 10, 11, 12, and 14. I showed you the mapping portal, but if you click here on the public comment portal, you're able to go ahead and put your suggestions in terms of written testimony, which is something that you can do. You click on it and you provide your written testimony. If you want to submit a districting plan, you click on there, submit your districting plan. Or if you want to identify a community interest, you submit that as well. And then you submit the comment and it goes directly to the Michigan Independent Redistricting Commission. Once again, written testimony, click on that and you'll do it. Click on our districting plan if you want to submit a plan for one of the districts. Or if you want to click a community interest is known as something historical, cultural, or of economic interest, meaning economic development, whether it's a waterfront, entertainment district, business district, agriculture, what have you. So once again, I want you to know that all of this, I repeat, all of this is available off the front page of the MICRC website. You don't have to click multiple spots. You can access everything from the front page. Let me come out of there. There we go. All right, thank you so much. I'm going to turn this back over to Commissioner Lang and Commissioner Kellum to close this out. I think Commissioner Kellum is going to do the first closeout, and thanking everyone here, and Commissioner Lang will go from there. Once again, I want to thank all of our interpreters that have helped out this evening. Appreciate them on such a short notice for being out here with us, and also want to thank the Michigan Department of State. So once again, thank you. And if you want to comment, please join us tomorrow at 9 o'clock at the Cadillac Place, either in person, or you can click on the meeting notice as I just showed you, and make sure you sign up by 8 o'clock a.m. Also want to recognize and thank the commissioners who have been engaging and answering questions behind the scenes. We see Commissioner Weiss, Commissioner Callahan, and let's see, did I miss anybody? Commissioner Andrade was on as well. I want to thank her. And we had Commissioner Orton, who provided remarks, and I also want to thank Commissioner Lett, who was sick but came on as well. And if there's any other commissioners I missed, please charge it to my head and not to my heart, but appreciate you coming. Oh, Commissioner Zatella and Commissioner Wagner, appreciate you coming in and joining us for this very important conversation. And once again, kudos to you, Commissioner Lang, for this idea and getting us together tonight. And thanks again, Commissioner Kellum, for joining Commissioner Lang. All right, Commissioner Kellum, we'll turn it over to you, then to Commissioner Lang.
Thank you, Executive Director and Community Outreach Director Edward Woods III. I don't want to keep us or keep my part any longer than it has to be. I'm very, very honored to have held space for the Detroiters, and for those listening, this will be recorded and posted to our YouTube. So there is still value in rewinding something that was live and listening to that. I just encourage my fellow Detroiters to not be discouraged, to really dig in and to keep commenting. Don't feel like this is an effort lost. I know many things for our communities sometimes don't turn out right, but I think your voice is needed more than ever in continuing the written testimony and showing up to the meetings when you can and if you can, and continuing to engage with us, because we are still actively drawing. Again, we're just at the first stage. And so it was such a pleasure to be able to answer questions and to say, I don't know, I'll find that out for you. And even to have the pushback, because it's all a part of the process. I think the passion and frustration shows how important it is for us to get this right. And that is what and I'm sure the rest of the commissioners endeavor to do. So thank you again. And I am very happy to be a part of the commission and to help things move forward. Commissioner Lang.
You said it perfectly, but I do want to thank everybody that attended also. And I think if I could stress anything, if you take anything away from tonight's meeting, it would be tell a friend, tell a relative, get others involved, because the more you lift your voices, the easier it's going to make it for us to do the job that we need to do and do a good job for the residents of Detroit. And that is truly what I believe every commissioner on this commission wants, is to make sure that you are represented properly. So if there has been, what's the word I'm looking for, Commissioner Gillum, frustration with us, please know that I truly believe our hearts are in the right place, and you can help us get the outcome that we need by sharing your voices and encouraging your neighbors and your community members to share their voices with us. And thank you again for coming out tonight.